Shima Luan. From entire games poorly designed to slander a company's primary competitor, to weirdly out-of-place billboards, we count 16 of the worst product placements in video games of all time. Number 16. Pepsi Man. I'm not really sure what to think of Pepsi Man. On one hand, the advertising in the game is so over the top that it loops back around to be charming. On the other hand, it's a game that people actually paid to play. The quirkiness that could only come from Japan made this game a cult classic, but it can't really work out if all of this was on purpose and people just took it for irony, or if the developers were actually self-aware, because if you haven't heard of it before, you should really know of its anomalistic existence. Number 15. Everquest 2 Pizza Delivery. While this particular method actually worked to garner a lot of publicity towards both Everquest 2 and Pizza Hut, ordering pizza from inside an MMO is still a pretty stupid idea if you actually think about it. Sure, it had the benefit that you didn't have to alt-tab to a browser, but really, what kind of MMO player doesn't alt-tab frequently anyways? And if they were going to support the whole MMO players don't want to converse with people angle, they forgot that the customer still needed to, answer the door? Number 14. Dead Rising 2 Playboy. For those of you who have never played Dead Rising, it's a wacky, tongue-in-cheek zombie game where you use improbable weapons to kill massive hordes of zombies. For some reason, the developers thought it would be a good idea to include Playboy magazines and posters into the mix, which would be fine if the material in the game had some sort of self-awareness or humor to it, but it didn't. Instead, it was just straight-up softcore porn that felt as out of place as a penguin in a sauna. Number 13. Yarus. Following the success of the Burger King and Dorito Xbox Live arcade games, Toyota decided to commission a game based around the Yarus. This would have been just fine if it was actually fun, but instead it had wonky controls and was way too long for its own good. Don't get me wrong, the idea of having a robotic gun coming out of a family-friendly car like the Yarus is reasonably funny, but it went against all of the advertising surrounding the Yarus in the first place, and came across as a weird game targeted at no one in particular. Number 12. Fight Night Round 3 Burger King. Having well-placed product placement in a major release can actually add to the immersion and make the game feel like it actually belongs in the real world. On the flip side, when it's done poorly, it sticks out like a sore thumb and leaves a bad taste for the game and the product it's trying to promote. So it's really baffling to me to see such an overt advertisement smacked in the middle of a game like it belongs there. For those that don't know, the Burger King mascot is included as a boxing trainer, and there's also a special Burger King achievement. The whole thing just screams of soullessness, laziness, and ignorance. Number 11. Pepsi Invaders. Back in 1983, when Coca-Cola and Pepsi were fighting for supremacy on the fizzy sugar water battlefronts, Coke decided to commission a game based on the ever-popular Space Invaders, where the player shot down the letters P-E-P-S-I and some invaders to win. When the player won, they'd get the message Coke wins. And while Coke won the battle, this still seems dumb for one primary reason. Basically, the player spends most of their entire playtime staring intently at the word Pepsi, thus burning the word into the player's mind. Number 10. Phantasy Star Portable 2 Pizza Hut and Colonel Sanders. While Phantasy Star isn't exactly the most serious game in the world, it's still not a joke series, and so product placement should have been handled with a lot more tact than Sega ended up doing. In the Japanese version of PSOP 2, you can dress up with a pizza pan and a box as your sword and shield, while having Colonel Sanders backing you up as your AI partner. And if that isn't dumb as old buggery, then I don't know what is. Number 9. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Axe, Doritos, and Mountain Dew. The Metal Gear Solid franchise has had a lot of product placement throughout the years, with Calorie Mate paradoxically being included in the third installment despite the game being set decades before it existed. But Peace Walker takes the cake when it comes to dumb product placement. The sheer volume of commercial goods crammed into Peace Walker makes it almost impossible to ignore without putting a conscious effort into doing so. There's bags of Doritos, cans of Pepsi and Mountain Dew, shirts for Axe deodorant, Monster Hunter enemies, Assassin's Creed references, a Uniqlo, a Shonen Jump manga, and the list keeps going on. Number 8. Kool-Aid Man. An entire game where you quench the thirst of little monsters creatively named Thirsties. Originally, the game was obtained by sending an X amount of Kool-Aid items, which makes the game far from dumb, but then it was made available for purchase. This seems more than a little presumptuous. I doubt many children love the mascot enough to have one of their very few games that they obtain from their parents to be a $60 ad. Number 7. Alan Wake, Verizon and Energizer. Most people agree that the most important thing to get right in a horror game is atmosphere, which is achieved through subtlety, environment design, and art style. All three of these aspects were turkey-slapped when you're forced to watch a TV with an ad for a Verizon mobile phone, which you then obtain and have to use to complete the game. Then there's the Energizer batteries, which powers your incredibly important weapon, the torch. And honestly, I think this was a bad idea for Energizer. Since it's a horror game, the batteries run out very quickly, giving a poor impression on the performance of their product. Number 6. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Airwaves. Pretty much every single cutscene in Chaos Theory has an ad for the chewing gum Airwaves. These are included with absolute subtlety to the point where it seems pretty obvious that they were going for subliminal advertising. But in all seriousness, it was as subtle as a blimp. Literally. They were on a blimp smack bang in the focal point of one of the first cutscenes. The worst part was when Sam Fisher grabs some of the gum and eats it while nothing else goes on in the scene, forcing you to watch an ad in a game you paid full price for. Number 5. Uncharted 3. Subway. Tie-ins such as XP bonuses found on energy drink cans aren't the same as product placements, but Subway and Naughty Dog managed to do both in this promotion. If you bought Subway during the month before Uncharted 3's release, you got to play the ranked multiplayer early. Not only that, but you could earn Subway-themed items to use during gameplay. Number 4. Halo 4. King of the Hill. I can sort of tolerate and understand having bonus XP obtained through buying an external company's product, but when you're forced to buy the product, scan it, go to a promoted store and play the game there in order to get a chance at getting one of those bonuses, you've gone way too far. Even worse is when you have a promotion for that promotion in a review that's supposedly meant to be a critique of the game, so that players know whether or not the game is good enough to buy. Number 3. Battlefield 2142. Billboards. I think the worst thing about the product placement in Battlefield 2142 is that if it weren't for two pretty major things, the placement could have actually added to the immersion of the game. The first thing they got wrong is having billboards for movies that would have come out more than 100 years prior to the events in the game. I mean, they could have at least tried by making the in-game poster to be a remake of the critically acclaimed movie or something. The next is the fact that they scanned your browsing history in order to place targeted ads. That's right, the game literally contains spyware, and the only way they told you this was in the lengthy EULA that not even the government expects you to read. Number 2. EA Games and Obama political ads. I don't know about you, but I play video games to escape from reality, and political ads are way too deep-seated in reality for me to feel anything but distaste for them being included in my alone time. Yet, that didn't stop the Obama electoral campaign from paying EA Games to have them pop up in all of their online games during 2008 and 2012. Apparently, it worked like a charm, according to their own market research anyway. But that doesn't make it not dumb. Number 1. Captain Novolin. The concept behind making a game to increase awareness for an issue as widespread as diabetes is a noble one. But when you take into account the fact that the game is focused on one particular brand of insulin, was sold at full price and donated precisely none of the money towards research into fixing the issue, you've got a seriously bizarre piece of capitalism. I mean, you can't get much more evil than capitalizing on sick children without giving anything tangible back to them. Thanks for listening. Bye.